Now here is a real trailblazer, Mrs. Caulfield. When Mrs. Caulfield and her husband were running for election, they were able to use the Model A Ford to campaign across the state of Missouri. Later, when she was in office as the First Lady, she was chauffeured to many of her events. Well, one particular time, her chauffeur was stopped for going 58 miles an hour in a 38-mile speed limit. He was fined $7.50, which Mrs. Caulfield gladly agreed to pay. After leaving office and returning for a visit, Mrs. Caulfield looked at her picture and was she was quite embarrassed by the way her dress looked. When she was in office, it was in the 1920s, it was the flapper era, and the roaring 20s. Well, her dress was quite stylish for that time period. She had spaghetti straps, a low neckline, and her dress came above the knee. Well, Mrs. Caulfield didn't like that her knees were showing in the portrait. Have you ever wanted a retake on your school picture? Well, Mrs. Caulfield was thinking the same thing. The styles had changed, and she didn't like that her dress was low-necked or that her knees were showing. So she called the artist back in and said, "Could you lengthen my dress?" And so now her dress is longer.